Artemis Fowl has finally had its day of release, and come on, the words miss and foul are both in the title. The puns write themselves. Hey everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with a late night review of Artemis Fowl. You know, you stay up for the good ones, right? This has been a long journey for Artemis Fowl. It was supposed to originally come out last summer, ended up being released on Disney Plus after the theatrical release date was pushed due to coronavirus. And so here we are, finally getting our claws into Artemis Fowl. And I think it's probably exactly what most people anticipated it was. Pretty much a big miss for Disney. But it's not just that it's a miss, it's actually... sometimes you're watching a movie and about 30 minutes into this one, my spidey sense started tingling and I realized this wasn't just a bad movie. This might be an all-timer. It was right around the time that they introduced Judi Dench as Commander Root, the leprechaun officer who heads the Lower Elements Police Reconnaissance, or LEP-Recon, division. And yes, I know that a lot of this is brought over from the books, and some of these elements I'm sure worked very well in those books, but from what I've read on the internet, there isn't a whole lot for the book readers to love in these movies either. Artemis Fowl is a bad movie, but at least it's not a boring one, and sometimes that's the worst thing about a bad movie. Not just bad, but boring. I was never bored during Artemis Fowl's 90 minutes, and that's largely because there are so many things to latch onto and keep track of that actually had me laughing more than a lot of the comedies that I've seen this year. Ferdias Shaw stars as the titular character, Artemis Fowl. This is Ferdias Shaw's first movie, and he's actually the grandson of Robert Shaw, this guy right here, known primarily for his role as Quint in my favorite movie, Jaws. I certainly hope that Ferdias Shaw has a much brighter career in front of him as an actor. He's very young, and he's just getting his start. Ferdias Shaw is joined by a cast of Disney regulars, including Josh Gad, who plays an oversized dwarf named Mulch Diggums, who can unhinge his jaw to dig through the earth. And as I was watching it, I thought, you know what? He looks kind of like an acceptable Hagrid cosplay at a mid-size comic book convention. But it's not what Mulch Diggums looks like, it's what he sounds like that really struck me in this movie. And when I say struck me, I mean it made me want to strike myself in the ears, because Josh Gad is putting on some kind of like second-rate Christian Bale Batman voice.
This isn't about the father. This is about the son.
They choose to make him narrate at least the first half of the movie. There's this framing device where they arrest Mulch Diggums, and he is providing the exposition for the movie as a framing device, direct to camera, just like I'm talking to you right now, but black and white, so it feels gritty. This goes for about the first half of the movie, and then they figure out that they're done with the exposition, so they sort of forget about that framing device until they loop back till the end of it. But I would have actually preferred if Josh Gad had narrated the movie in his Olaf voice, because this Batman Christian Bale voice that he's putting on is very off-putting. Judi Dench actually puts on the same Batman voice. I don't know whose decision it was to do the Batman voice in this movie, but it was a bad call on both counts. There's also Holly, who's a young 84-year-old elf cop out to clear her father's name, and a guy named Foley, who's a centaur. And the reason that I know his name is Foley is that he's introduced with the line, "This guy, Foley, fairy tech genius and centaur." That's the kind of movie that Artemis Fowl is. There's also some things that I kind of forget about because the movie sort of forgot about him too. There's this subplot with a corrupt elf cop that the movie just kind of weaves in and out a little bit, but mostly ignores and forgets about. There's a character named Juliet that they introduce. She's largely in the background, literally. Like at the end of the movie, the main characters take off and she's in the background in a window. Like you can kind of see her if you're looking for her, but I don't really know why they introduced the character because they do almost nothing with her. Again, to the point where I completely forgot that she was a part of this movie. The plot as it stands is about finding this magical device called the Aculos, and the reason that I know it's called the Aculos is because they say the phrase the Aculos over 24 times. I started counting about 30 minutes in, and I think I got up to 17 or 18 times of them saying the word, the Aculos. And I think if Artemis Fowl is able to get the sort of underground popularity that I think this movie may achieve in certain circles, there may be particular, let's say, games that involve imbibing beverages that the utterance of the name, the Aculos, may well be one of the things that you could perhaps take a sip of a beverage to, because the Aculos is said every time that the Aculos is mentioned. So you never forget that the weapon that they're looking for is called the Aculos because everyone calls it the Aculos and only the Aculos. And can we talk for a second about Judi Dench? Because what a 1-2 punch with Judi Dench here. I think we can say that she has officially entered the Robert De Niro phase of her career, the I'm gonna do things for my kids and the money phase. She's got the Oscars, she's got the acclaim, she's a dame, she's got so many things. She's just doing things to not be bored at this point. I didn't think you could challenge any of the old Deuteronomy moments from Cats, but there are moments in this movie that are all-time Judi Dench moments. There's one point where the camera just zooms into her dramatically, and she says, with no hint of irony, "Top of the morning." This is the kind of movie that you're watching here. As a matter of fact, the movie kind of speeds through everything. A lot of the scenes felt like they're being played at 2 times speed, as if at some point during the editing process, Disney or maybe the editor or somebody realized that you probably don't want to keep people in the theater too long for this thing, but they've been committed to it for way too long to just not do it. So let's just speed through it and get through it as quickly as possible, because there are scenes where there's dialogue, there's lines, and there's no breath, there's no breathing, there's no time to stop.
The only thing he kept private was his journal.
Then that's what we have to find.
I wouldn't know where to begin to look. Could your father have ever given you a clue?
It's one of those fascinating kinds of bad movies, because this was a $125 million film, and if it had come out in theaters, and oh my goodness, I wish it had, if only because I wish I could have discovered this movie in a room with other people. As this movie unfurled its brilliance in front of us, I wish I could have experienced this in a communal setting. Alas, it was not to be, but it's almost assured that if this movie had come out in theaters last summer or this summer or next summer or 10 summers from now, it would have been a pretty substantial box office disappointment. So I guess Disney probably saw a reason to put it on Disney Plus to perhaps avoid that kind of embarrassment. But at the same time, I think it kind of gives Disney Plus a bad name, because you don't want this streaming service to get a reputation as the place where you dump your bad projects. There have been some good stuff on Disney Plus originals that they've made just for the service. I don't think that Artemis Fowl is a feather in the cap for anybody who's looking to attract people to Disney Plus or give it some sort of prestige, because this was obviously a film, given the difficulties with release dates and the fact that Disney plans their releases 4 or 5 years ahead of time, that they saw an opportunity to quietly dump on the service, and then you don't have to worry about the box office figures or how much it made internationally or domestically. You get to recoup some of that investment or write off some of it. But I really cannot state enough the fact that Artemis Fowl isn't just a bad movie. It is a gloriously bad movie. It's the kind of bad movie that, if I were in a different position, I would almost recommend that you see just so that we could share this strange psychosis of having seen Artemis Fowl. Unless you have Disney Plus, and I guess that's where it's a little bit different. You're not going to be spending your box office dollars to go see this movie. So here's where I will tailor my recommendation here a little bit. If you have Disney Plus and you're curious, go ahead. But don't buy Disney Plus just to watch this movie. And if this movie is ever available for you just to buy on its own, don't buy it there either. It is a glorious disaster, but I don't know how much I would invest personally into it. So those are my thoughts on Artemis Fowl. Did you check out the movie? What did you think? Let me know down there in the comments. And stay tuned, because later today, I'm going to have another review for a movie that hit Netflix, Spike Lee's latest film, Da 5 Bloods, which I'm sure shares a lot of things in common with Artemis Fowl. They're such similar genres. Thank you so much for watching this. If you want to see even more stuff, check me out over on Patreon, patreon.com/Dan Murrell. We're doing a lot of cool stuff over there. But if you just want to hang out here on YouTube, I'll be here with news, reviews, charts, you name it. I love talking movies with you, and I appreciate you spending your time with me. Until next time, thanks for watching.